In session 27 here, we're going to be addressing approximations. Once again, this should not be that long of a lesson either. Approximations should look very, very familiar to you because they work very much like rounding off numbers that you've done previously. Rounding off a number either to the nearest hundred, the nearest thousand, the nearest tenth, the nearest hundredth, and so on. Here's a very short number line. It starts at 0 and goes all the way up to 3. Here's the number that I've selected, 2.751. And here, this blue point here represents the position on the number line that the number 2.751 rests upon. Question is, I want you to approximate this number to the nearest integer. Well, our integer here is 2. That's in the ones place. There's nothing to the left in the tens or the hundreds. So we simply have, to the left of the decimal, we have 2 in the ones or the units place. So to approximate this to the nearest ones or units place, I have to know which 2 units, in this case 2 integers, that this number 2.751 is in between. Well, dropping down to the number line, it's very easy to see that 2.751 is greater than 2, but less than 3. So this number is in between 2 and 3. So when I asked you to approximate this to the nearest unit, to the ones place, to the nearest integer, we had to first of all find out which 2 integers this number is between. It's in between 2 and 3. Here's where you use your rounding rules. Okay, we find our place that represents what we're rounding to. We're rounding it off to the nearest units, our ones place. So we now take a look at the first digit to the right of our ones place. And in this situation, it's our tenths. If that number is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. We bump up. Or in this case, we approximate up. So 2.7 is closer to 3 than it is to 2. So the approximation of 2.751 to the nearest unit would be 3. And this double squiggly line here means approximately equal to. So to the nearest whole number, to the nearest integer, 2.751 is approximately equal to 3. Well, now that we've done that, let's go ahead and approximate it to a different place this time. This time, let's choose the tenths place. I want you to approximate this number, 2.751, to the first place to the right of the decimal point. In other words, to the nearest tenth. Well, 2.751, here's our tenths place. Our 7 is in the tenths place. So which 2 tenths is 2.751 in between? Well, it's in between 2.7 and 2.8. 2.751 is greater than 2.7, but it's less than 2.8. So what we have to do now is take a look at our digit to the right of the one that we're approximating to. We're approximating to the tenths, so let's take a look at the place to the right, which is our hundredths. It's a 5. And once again, what's our rule say? Our rule says that if the number that we're approximating to a particular place, if the digit to the right of it is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we bump it up 1. We round up 1, or we approximate up 1. So is 2.751 closer to 2.7 or 2.8? Well, the 5 here tells us to bump up, that we're closer to 2.8. So 2.751 to the nearest tenth is approximately 2.8. We'll go ahead and take this one step further. Let's say I now ask you to approximate this to the nearest hundredth, 2 places to the right of the decimal point. Well, our 5 is in the hundredths place. So the question is, which 2 hundredths is 2.751 in between? Well, it's greater than 2.75, but less than 2.76. So that it's somewhere in between there. So we have to use our rounding rule. Here's our 5. We're rounding off. We're approximating to the nearest hundredth. Therefore, we take a look to the digit to the right of it. It's a 1. And if you have a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we leave this digit alone. We round down. So 2.751 is closer to 2.75 than it is to 2.76. So rounding off to the nearest hundredth or approximating to 2 decimal places to the right, 2.751 approximately or approximates to 2.76. That's it. As a review, whenever you make an approximation, just make sure that you use the following symbol. Those two tildes, I believe is the proper name. I call them squigglies. Those two squiggly marks on top of each other is the approximation symbol. That'll wrap up session 27 on approximation.